Yes, exactly. Good morning. I have the pleasure to moderate the upcoming next session, which is indeed about opportunities and investments and instruments for ESG investments in Asia Pacific. Well, I think we all know that ESG has really been booming recently globally. It's been really rising in Europe, in America, and also, of course, in Asia Pacific. But we all probably also know and probably agree that growth and increasing quantity is not the same as increasing quality. So, of course, globally and internationally, there are all sorts of very important questions about ESG, definition questions, regulatory questions. What are really driving the growth in ESG? What are exactly the needs of basically end investors in ESG? So all sorts of interesting questions. And today we have, I think, an excellent panel with very, very interesting, relevant backgrounds from institutions, all of them who are really involved in ESG investments, who are shaping the ESG market. So with that, I would like to invite to the stage our speakers. So I would like to invite to the stage Ms. Alexandra Tracy, Ms. Xiaotian Li, Dr. Professor Yongdae Kim, Mr. Jinsuk Choi, and Mr. Wonsuk Han. Thanks again for joining our panel today. So as I mentioned, we would really like to go through the key trends, risks, opportunities in ESG investments today, really looking at the emerging new instruments in ESG. But before we zoom into those interesting questions, maybe let's just start with a quick introduction. So I would like to ask all of you to say a few words about yourselves. What are you currently involved in? How are you in relationship to ESG investments? And maybe just let's go in this order. So can we maybe start with you, Alexandra?
Good morning, everybody. It's an enormous pleasure to be here, and thank you very much to UNEP FI for the invitation. I'm Alexandra Tracy. I'm based in Hong Kong, so this is about the first time I've actually managed to make it out of the island and see people in real life. We clung on to our COVID regulations longer than anybody else in Asia, I think. So I started life as an infrastructure banker in Asia. I financed coal-fired power plants and cement plants and refineries and toll roads all over the region. Since then, I've been on a bit of a journey. Along the way, I was chairman of an organization called the Association for Sustainable Responsible Investment in Asia, and I had the privilege of working with Pei Yuan, who moderated our last session at that time. And I was also co-founder of the Asia Investor Group on Climate Change, and I'm delighted that Monica, who's at AIGCC, is part of this conference today. So now I run a boutique research and advisory business called Hoiping Ventures. We look at all aspects of green finance, but I really focus on how we mobilize private investment into low carbon infrastructure and green technologies in emerging markets in Asia.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Xiaotian Li from Aegon-Industrial Fund. Aegon-Industrial is a leading asset manager company in China with a total AUM of 650 billion Chinese yuan. We are the first fund manager to start responsible investment in China's mainland, with our first social responsible mutual fund launched in 2008, and our first green investing fund launched in 2011. Now we are the signatory and supporter of PRI and the TCFD. We hope to contribute to the event from the perspective of Chinese market and mutual fund manager. Thank you.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Good morning, and I'm a Professor Jong Kim in Inha University, and I'm a Director of Green Financing Department in Inha University, which is actually the one and only green finance department, major in Korea, which gives the master's and the PhD degrees in green finance. And I'm very proud of it, actually. And I am also executive director of ESG Center in the SMLI in Inha University. And I have been working on this area about 30 years. Among my career records, I was a member of a Responsible Investment Advisory Committee of National Pension Funds, Korea, and a member of the Task Force on ESG financing of the Korean Financial Services Commission currently. Okay, and I'm very happy and honored to be here as a panel discussant on this important issue. And am I supposed to answer any questions now, or just okay? Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Jinsuk Choi, the head of Sustainable Investments team of KIC, Korean Sovereign Wealth Fund. KIC is investing diversified asset classes from global equities to alternative assets, like private equity, hedge fund, and infrastructure, and so on. Using about more than 800 USD dollars. I have led for the development of the sustainable investments of KIC, managing sustainable programs with ESG integration and engaging the stewardship activities. I'm grateful to UNEP FI for this invitation and excited to discuss ESG trends in Asia with the distinguished panelists and experts today. Thank you.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Wonsuk. I'm working at the Korea Development Bank in the Green Finance Planning Department as a team head. I'm very happy to join this distinguished conference as a panel. Actually, the last year I also hosted the global conference with the Stanford University. At the time, I was just in charge of that event, but this time I participate as a panel, so I feel different. But I'm very appreciate for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much for all the introductions. I'm sure everybody's really excited to hear all your insights about ESG. And my first question is more about the drivers. The key trends in Asia Pacific in ESG investing, and this is a question to all of our panelists today. So the question exactly is, what are the key trends that you see in Asia Pacific in ESG investing, and what are the key drivers behind all those trends? And maybe let's just start now with Mr. Wonsuk Han.
Thank you for this chance, Mr. Gabor. I think it's very important to note that the ESG trend in Asia, quite different from those in United States or the European countries, the developed countries. Currently, actually the developed countries are leading the ESG international trend and the framework in the world and set the examples. On the other hand, the developing countries are managing to catch up that framework or the regulations. You know, the most of Asian countries and Asian economies are quite centered around carbon-intensive manufacturing, and export-oriented the economy structure. So they deeply express the concern over the potential, the impact on the economy due to the ESG trend or ESG framework, such as the European, the carbon, the border, the adjustment mechanism, or the supply chain, the due diligence, or the American, the Inflation Reduction Act. So, but except for the large companies, some of large companies listed in United States or the Europe, the most of the Asian companies are not fully prepared for the implementation of the ESG and quite vulnerable to this new international trade norms. So we don't have to ignore that perspective. So I think so the key trend in Asia is how to get the Asian economies up to the international level, the international standard of ESG, and we have to make them to get accustomed to this situation. I think if they are informed that this is very urgent and this is more favorable to their economies or their life, they will willing to take part in this journey with their pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you. Especially, it was really interesting to hear your thoughts about like the differences between Asia and US and Europe, but also the links. I mean, in this very global market. Let's maybe now turn to Mr. Jinsuk Choi.
Thank you. When we looking what's happening in Asia now, we are seeing more and more investors paying attention to environmental concerns. This is driven by a growing understanding of climate risk and how they can affect businesses in the long run. Given the diverse environment in Asia, from coastal region to big cities, the impacts of climate change cannot be ignored. This awareness is changing how businesses operate and how we invest. But I have noticed that compared to the EU or other country, for instance, we are not focusing enough on biodiversity, a vital issue among ESG. I hope that broader topics will be discussed among Asian investors. When it comes to opportunity in Asia, with its rapidly growing industries, represents a unique landscape. Thus, technology, renewable energy, carbon credit, and e-mobility sectors in particular are booming. By investing in these sectors, we can support sustainable development goals while also looking forward to potentially high returns. I think we should also mention that active strategies that have been spreading in Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, and China recently. I believe that this surge in activism coupled with ESG in Asian countries will go beyond the problem of short-termism, thereby enhancing the efficiency and sustainability of businesses. In summary, ESG trends in Asia are changing fast, and it's both a challenge and opportunities. This is an exciting time for investing in Asia, and I look forward to our discussion today on how we can continue this momentum. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And it was like just to highlight just one element from your intervention, like I think it's important really to highlight that, of course, ESG is such a broad topic. It's, of course, climate risks and climate change is a very important theme, but of course, like biodiversity and nature that you've mentioned, this is emerging. This is very important, also very important to be reflected in investment decisions. So thanks for making also that note. I would like to turn to Ms. Tracy with the same question now.
Thank you. You make a very important point that ESG covers many topics. I'm happy to follow the first two expert speakers who've given you such a great broad overview. But I'd like to just add from my perspective, which is slightly narrower. I tend to look at investment to support decarbonisation and the net zero transition in Asia. So it's quite a broad topic, but it doesn't cover all of ESG. So I think in order to get to net zero in Asia, we need three things. Number one, to reduce capital flows into high-emitting sectors. This involves regulation, greater disclosure, which we've heard about this morning, higher quality of data, which I think the tech platforms are now beginning to support. And I sit on the board of an excellent data company in Singapore, which I would be delighted to tell you about separately. And wider application of carbon pricing, more pressure on portfolio companies by ESG investors. And we are seeing progress on all those measures in Asia, which I'm sure we've been discussing over these 2 days. The second trend or driver is that we need to allocate more funding into the low-emitting sectors and transition businesses. So this involves the evolution of new fund vehicles. I'm sure you've heard about the recent announcement of an enormous joint venture between Temasek in Singapore and BlackRock to launch and seed a whole series of private equity funds to invest in decarbonisation technologies. It involves new investment products, so moving beyond your plain vanilla green bonds into project bonds, blue bonds, asset-backed securitization, and to pick up on the earlier point, innovative fund vehicles to support natural capital and biodiversity solutions. And the third thing that we really need is to mobilize investment at much greater scale in the emerging markets of the region. So this is going to require de-risking, blended finance, public-private partnerships, innovative and creative financial structures. It's also important to note that in the lesser developed markets, capital markets do not play a great role. The main players are the commercial banks, SMEs, as was mentioned earlier, and the informal sector. And so it's very important to engage all of these players as well.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much, especially also like adding this three-part structure to this discussion. I'm really curious to also hear your thoughts about de-risking and blended finance, maybe if we turn to the instruments part in the second part of the panel. But let's still stay with key trends and opportunities. And now I would like to turn to Ms. Xiaotian Lin with this question.
Thank you. Based on our research, just like we also found 3 key ESG trends in ESG investments, just like Alexandra mentions. Number 1, more government regulations of ESG disclosure. Number 2, increasing attention on climate issue from investors. Number 3, more comprehensive ESG integration of investment system. Let me explain a little bit. In recent years, many Asia-Pacific countries, including China, Singapore, and Japan, have issued guidelines and standards of ESG investment. On the one side, the clean energy and the green industry received increasing attention as investment target and the policy support of the carbon neutrality and the sustainable development. On the other side, the asset managers are more active to incorporate the climate change into their decision-making process. Aegon-Industrial in 2021, we become the first manager in China to publish the carbon neutrality white paper. In the white paper, we calculated our operational carbon footprint and announced our goal to completing portfolio level carbon emission calculations by 2024. By the end of last year, over 11% of 156 mutual fund managers in China have become PRI signatories, and more than 60 of them have launched ESG funds. In foreseeable future, the ESG strategy may not only be individual product strategies, but will be integrated to all aspects of the investment. About the opportunity and drivers, we observed 2 drivers of the rapid development of the ESG investment. as the top-down policy support and the bottom-up demand of the industry. Take China, for instance. In 2020, China set ambitious goals of reaching the peak of carbon emissions by 2030 and achieving carbon neutrality by 2060. The national strategy of green development creates enormous opportunities, including the innovative companies who seize the low carbon opportunities, but also those companies in traditional industries who constantly improving their ESG performances. So we believe in this process we witnessed many successful cases. I think with more outgoing, more outperforming companies coming out, the ESG investors will eventually benefit from the flourishing assets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, just to pick one element from your intervention is like bringing also to the discussion like government policies. Of course, it's extremely important to reflect like government sustainability policies, climate goals, NDCs, everything. And also, of course, let's forget like the specific regulation of ESG investing. And of course, in many jurisdictions globally, also in Asia Pacific, this is still on the rise. This is still in the making. It's not so easy, I mean, how to regulate, for instance, ESG rating providers, like ESG labeling, which is, of course, like, again, very interesting and very challenging topic for regulators also beyond Asia Pacific. So, yes, let's not forget, like, regulation from all these trends which are, like, driving the change and rise in ESG investing. And finally, let me also now turn to Professor JD with the same question.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, there are many drivers and opportunities in Asian market, just like the advanced countries. I guess, I hope I will address that drivers and opportunities, etc., during my prepared materials. But anyway, for now, I would say that the most effective and current drivers in Asian countries, although it depends on different socio-economic situations and economic development, level of economic development, the most important one I would say is government leadership. Okay? Because I see so many countries, in so many Asian countries, the investors and even the financial institutions are waiting for government to do something for them before they are actually involved in the actual decision making. Okay, that's what I found. And secondly, it's another kind of defensive or reactive action. The second one I would say is the pressures from the financial clients and the stakeholders, especially from the advanced countries. Okay, so unfortunately, I haven't seen enough action by the financial institutions and the companies to embed that ESG issues in their real cooperation or financial decision making. But I think that we are coming closer to that ideal situation. But we have in Asian country, we have a long way to go. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, and I really like this picture of like getting step by step closer to the ideal situation. Yeah, I think it's a process, it's a journey, still a lot to do. Now in the second part of our panel, I would now like to turn to instruments. Of course, like again, ESG is a broad topic. There are all sorts of different asset classes, instruments, which can all be like put under the umbrella of ESG investing. But let's again have a discussion on this one. And this time I would like to start with Professor. And of course, it's very useful that you have your university background, your research background, so maybe you can just give us like an overview about the different ESG investment opportunities, instruments available in Asia, maybe along with the advantages and disadvantages, and their suitability to different types of investors and end investors.
Okay, thank you. If I may, I would like to make a comment in Korean, because I'm pretty sure that we have very good translator there. So if you don't mind, okay, probably I will use that English and Korean interchangeably. But anyway, let me begin with my prepared materials. Okay. 기본적으로 ESG 투자라고 하면 아시안 마켓이나 선진국 마켓이나 사실은 별 다를 바가 없죠. 상품 종류의 측면에서도 예를 들면 GSS 채권, Green, Social and Sustainability Bonds죠. 이나 아니면 지속가능 연계 채권, 지속가능 연계 론, 뭐 녹색 대출 이런 것들이 사실은 뭐 거의 같은 구조를 가지고 아시아 시장에서도 발행이 되고 있죠. 그리고 흔하지는 않지만 ESG ETF라든지 아니면 사회 영향 채권이라든지 ESG 벤처 캐피탈 그다음에 사모 펀드 이런 것들이 이제는 조금씩 활성화되고 있는 추세죠. 아시아 시장에서도. 그렇지만 규제 프레임워크나 환경, 시장 특성, 투자자 선호, 국가별 지속 가능성 우선순위 등에 따라서 아시아 시장은 유럽이나 북미 시장과 ESG 투자 상품에 있어서 차이가 있는 건 사실입니다. 예를 들면 아시아 시장에서 SLB 지속가능 연계 채권이죠. 또는 지속가능 연계 대출은 그린반드의 발행이 그것보다는 그린반드가 훨씬 더 녹색 채권이 활성화되어 있죠. 그린반드는 조달 자금의 용도가 특정되어 있지만 지속가능 연계 상품들은 자금 사용처가 특정되어 있지 않죠. 굉장히 플렉시블한 거죠. 그래서 이 발행회사 입장에서는 장점이 되겠지만 또 한편으로는 발행 조건이 불리할 수도 있습니다. 그런데 우리 아시아 시장에서는 지속가능 연계 채권 발행이 굉장히 저조하고 사실은 한국에서는 한 건도 없죠. 이런 맥락에서 예를 들면 중국과 인도와 같은 나라에서 녹색 채권 발행의 급증이 재생에너지, 에너지 효율, 저탄소 운송 시스템 구축 이런 환경 및 기후변화 관련 투자 수요와 관련이 있다고 볼 수가 있죠. 하지만 전반적으로 아시아 시장에서는 ESG 펀드, 영향 투자 펀드, 지속가능 지수 펀드, 탄소 옵셋 금융 상품 등은 상대적으로 덜 활성화되어 있습니다. 전 세계적으로 많은 어려움에도 불구하고 ESG 투자가 증가하고 있죠. 여러분들이 잘 알고 계시겠지만 2022년 전 세계 ESG 투자액이 1조 5천억 달러, 그리고 이것은 2021년에 1조 8천억 달러보다는 조금 감소했지만 2020년에 비해서는 거의 2배 급증한 그런 금액이죠. 이 중에서 GSS 채권 발행은 2021년을 정점으로 다소 주춤한 상황이지만 지속가능 연계 상품 비중은 2021년과 2년에 거의 35%에 이르고 있을 정도로 급증하고 있습니다. 한국에서도 ESG 상품의 발행과 유통이 빠르게 증가하고 있지만 그 규모는 우리 전체 경제 규모를 고려할 때 그리 크지 않다고 생각됩니다. 2022년 한국 시장 전체 ESG 상품 발행 잔액은 약 400조 원, 3,140억 US 달러죠. 그리고 순증가액은 40조 원, 310억 US 달러에 불과하죠. 좀 특징적인 것은 전체 상품 중 사회적 채권의 비중이 가장 큰 반면 지속가능 연계 채권은 전무하다는 겁니다. 한국 기업들의 ESG 채권 발행 목적은 선진국 시장에 비해서 좀 제한적인데요. 이걸 SDG 목표에 얼라인시킨 채권 발행 목적을 보면 가장 큰 것이 SDG 골 넘버 8이죠. 양질의 일자리 창출과 경제 성장. 그리고 그 뒤를 이어서 지속 가능한 도시와 커뮤니티, 적정 가격의 청정 에너지, 기후 변화 대응, 그리고 책임 있는 생산과 소비 순으로 채권 발행의 지속 가능 GSS 채권이죠. 채권의 목적이 명시되어 있습니다. 일반적으로 ESG 투자는 기업으로 하여금 지속 가능 경영과 실무를 적극적으로 채택하게 만들어주고 기업과 사회의 지속 가능성을 높일 수 있도록 디자인되어 있습니다. 그리고 ESG 투자자를 끌어들이기 위해서 정보 공시를 확대하고 투명성을 늘리는 긍정적인 효과를 가지죠. 그렇지만 여러 가지 사회 경제적 이유로 아시아 시장과 그 외 시장, 특히 유럽과 북미 시장에서 ESG 투자 상품 시장은 서로 다른 특징을 가지고 있습니다. 우선 아시아 시장은 유럽과 북미 시장에 비해서 ESG 투자의 역사가 상대적으로 짧아서 ESG 투자 생태계가 아직까지 정착되어 있지 않죠. 그리고 ESG 관련 정보 표준화와 공시 기준이 아직 준비되어 있지 않고 상대적으로 ESG 관련 규제가 유럽이나 북미에 비해 좀 느슨한 편이어서 투자 확산 속도가 더딘 아시아 국가들이 많이 있습니다. 한국을 포함해서. 따라서 전 세계적으로 경제 강대국들이 지금과 같은 이런 패권주의나 자국 중심주의의 경제 정책을 고집하는 대신에 전 세계 국가들이 우리 공동의 미래를 위해서 국제 협력을 회복하여 포용적인 지속 가능 발전을 강화할 필요가 있다고 생각합니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. It was really, really interesting. And also like putting the market development in a historic context, so as to understand how the market is evolving. And especially it was for me very interesting, like the differences between green bonds and sustainability linked bonds, like again in the market. Again, of course, like also we are seeing internationally very interesting patterns. So in some countries, green bonds, of course, emerge faster, and then in some countries, even sustainability linked bonds like are even growing now much stronger than green bonds. I mean, I think these trends are always so interesting to see. I would like to turn now to Ms. Tracy with the next question. And of course, for UNEP FI, impact is always like really important. Impact evaluation, impact assessment is so important in ESG. So my question is that how do you evaluate impact of your sustainability investments? What are the key metrics that you are using? How can you measure performance? And is it different between different instruments, asset classes, or is your approach basically the same?
Thank you. I see this nice lady is flashing a sign at us that we're using up our time, so I'm going to be very brief. As I've said, my particular work is mostly in the area of how to use public or concessional finance to mobilize private investment in low carbon infrastructure and green technologies in emerging markets in Asia. So I'm a private sector advisor to the World Bank's climate investment funds, and I was for quite a number of years advisor and active private sector observer for the Green Climate Fund just down the road in Songdo. So I had the privilege of coming to Korea 4 or 5 times a year, which was great. So looking at it from that perspective, there's a very different kind of indicator that we would consider, which is very important, and that is the leverage ratio when investing in projects. And what that means is how much private or commercial capital is actually being mobilized by every dollar of concessional capital. Now, of course, we look at other ESG indicators, whether that's carbon emissions, all the other sort of co-benefits that go with investing in projects across all of the E, S, and G metrics. But this leverage ratio is a very, very important part of how multilateral development banks and other public and concessional and blended finance players will look at investment. Clearly, the higher the ratio, the better. But we should also bear in mind that these transactions with multiple tranches and de-risking mechanisms can be very complex and time-consuming, and therefore very costly. And so that also has to be borne in mind when considering investments.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I can just fully agree, like with this, leverage element is so important in not just in ESG investing, but also in sustainable finance. How can we really mobilize as much private funds as possible with like smart approaches? The next question would now go to Ms. Xiaotian, and I would like to hear how do you see the relationship between ESG investing and brand reputation. What are the ways that companies can use their sustainability practices to build stronger brands, improve their own reputations?
Thank you, Gabor. I believe there's one central thing in common between the ESG strategy and the brand reputation is the long-termism and the sustainability. For companies in pursuit of the good reputation, it's natural and significant to integrate the ESG into their corporate culture and strategy. Take Aegon-Industrial, for example. As a mutual fund manager established in 2003, we started with a vision and purpose in mind to become a respectable fund manager. So the responsibility has always been our core corporate culture and value. We started our charity initiatives since 2006 and kept running till now with over 200 charity projects and influencing over 280,000 beneficiaries. And in 2009, we became one of the first manager to publish a responsibility report in China. And in 2021, we also released the industry's very first carbon neutrality white paper and achieved carbon neutrality with a carbon audit. Secondly, I think it's very important to integrate the ESG strategy into the company's core business as much as possible so as to create substantial impact on stakeholders. In terms of asset management industry, responsible investment is the perfect blend of social responsibility and investment expertise. Aegon-Industrial strives to be a pioneer, practitioner, and advocate in China of responsibility investment. So we also made great, that not only were we the earliest to practice responsible investment, but we also make great effort in introducing the importance and the potential value of responsible investment. Since 2008, we have translated and introduced a series of books such as socially responsible investing, green investing, and sustainable investing. We have initiated extensive ESG advocacy campaigns with different stakeholders, including universities, media, NGOs, and ESG researchers. And we also shared our experiences at the UNEP FI roundtable in 2017, and honored to speak again here with you today. Furthermore, I'd like to introduce a real example. In 2016, we launched an innovative private equity scheme, the Social Responsibility Separated Managed Account, or SMA. It aims to preserve and enhance the value of charitable assets or foundations. To some degree, it represents a new form of impact investing because we reinvest a certain proportion of the SMA's investment income into charity projects as the special charity fund. To date, this product has attracted many institutions, including some top university foundations, media foundations, and family foundations. Finally, as a value investor, we often talk about long-termism. Long-term investing is not only means how long we hold an asset, but also about how far we look ahead. ESG investment is not only a responsibility for asset management industry, but also a crucial direction and opportunity. From brand perspective, I believe the ESG practice is a right path and will leverage more resource to create, to build a stronger brand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think we all agree that credibility is in ESG investing is so important. We all want to avoid greenwashing, but at the same time, we do believe that recognizing what is really good and what was really adding value is also so important. So thanks very much also for highlighting the importance of communication, communicating with stakeholders, NGOs, everything. Like this is all part of this very broad ESG universe. I would like to turn now to Mr. Jinsuk Choi with the next question. Can you speak about the role of sovereign wealth funds in promoting sustainable investing in Asia? And how is KIC leveraging its position as a sovereign wealth fund? How is it integrating ESG in its investment portfolio?
Thank you for your question. The role of sovereign wealth funds, like KIC, is becoming increasingly pivotal in sustainable investing, not only in Asia but also across the globe. Sovereign wealth funds, with their immense resources and long-term investment horizons, have a unique position to influence sustainability and shape the way companies operate. Sovereign wealth funds have the financial influence to drive corporations toward integrating ESG factors into their strategic decisions. As a large institutional investors, their approach to investing signals market preference and standards. But the influence of sovereign wealth funds extends beyond financial means. They can contribute to shaping policy dialogue and crafting regulatory norms around sustainable investing. In Asia, where many countries are in different stages of their ESG journey, the leadership role of sovereign wealth fund is essential. They can serve as a role models, demonstrating how to effectively incorporate ESG factor into investment strategies. For example, KIC invites Korean public investors every year to share experience on how to develop our sustainable investing and to share information from the global perspectives. The event called ESG Day is already in its 50 years and is growing in influence. For instance, we held global conference by co-hosting with international organizations such as the IFC 2 years ago. At KIC, we take our role as a sovereign wealth fund seriously and strive to promote ESG integration across our portfolio. We believe that considering ESG factors is not just a risk management tool, but also a way to unlock value and identify opportunities. Over the past years, we have built out our ESG capability by investing in people and technology, setting up a dedicated sustainable team, and embedding ESG considerations into our investment decision-making process. In addition to KIC's direct portfolio, we also operate incentive program for all traditional asset managers and alternative asset managers, GP, that we employ, such as conducting ESG due diligence and additional scoring. Also, our approach includes active ownership practices where we engage with the management of our portfolio companies, encouraging them to address material ESG risks and opportunities. With regards to how our focus on asset classes have evolved, we have been increasingly diversifying our portfolio across various asset classes. While traditionally we focus on equity and fixed income market, we've expanded our view to alternative investments like infrastructure, real estate, and private equity, which offer significant opportunity for sustainable investment. For example, KIC has contributed to issuance of sovereign bonds for green and sustainability. The issuance in 2018-19 was the first trial in the world and very successful. Using these proceeds, we have invested in green and social projects. For instance, infrastructure investments, particularly in renewable energy, provide an excellent opportunity to contribute to the transition towards a low carbon economy. Also, real estate investments focus on a green building, also represents an area where we can align our portfolio with ESG objectives. In conclusion, KSE, like sovereign wealth fund, like KSE, can play a crucial role in promoting sustainable investing in Asia. We are actively working to leverage our influence to drive ESG integration, not just within our portfolio, but across the broader investment landscape. It's a journey, and we are excited about the progress we have made, and look forward to continuing to evolve our approach to sustainable investing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, especially for explaining really this very broad and wide impact that's how a sovereign investment fund sovereign wealth fund like the KIC can really have on the market and also going beyond your country. And finally, let me also turn to Mr. Wonsuk. I'm really curious to hear also your thoughts about how can financial institutions make decisions on ESG investment opportunities, and especially about what are the key metrics, frameworks that can be used to assess ESG performance and maybe also to maximize ESG performance.
Yeah, actually, I'm just focusing on the Korea Development Bank process. Korea Development Bank is the policy bank. So we put together the long-term plan and strategy to provide the green finance. That amount would be around $20 billion by 2030. So we're going to put the huge fund into the promote or the support the green finance, green industries or the ESG sectors. For that, we have to keep two factors when we make a decision, the investment decision. The first one is prevention of greenwashing. So we try to make sure that our finance, this is quite the public funds, because the Korean government gave some part of the budget for the net zero to the KDB, so we are using that into these sectors. So to prevent the greenwashing, we adopted the K taxonomy prepared by Korean government. That benchmark the European taxonomy, but we adjusted it into the Korean situation and circumstances. So we adopted the K taxonomy to prevent the greenwashing. So we want our investment to align with the environmental goals and the ESG values, such as the mitigation and adaptation of the climate change, or the reservation, the water, and biodiversity, or the circular economy like this. So if these criteria are satisfied, we can provide our green finance to these sectors. And another one is, the process is the impact assessment. The other panel already mentioned about it. So we also consider the impact assessment, how much our investment contribute to the NDC goal and the environmental goals or the ESG values. Also, we are preparing the credit credit risk review system in terms of the ESG. We are trying to review each companies, each borrowers or each investees, the ESG rating based on their disclosed information in terms of their ESG. So based on that ESG rating, we can provide our green finance with more favorable terms and conditions or the longer term maturity. So I think is quite competitive with, rather than the commercial banks or other financial institutions. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And actually, time flies, so it seems like we are came so close to ending of the panel. So let me just try to summarize basically all of the discussion. It's very difficult because there were so many great insights. I personally learned a lot. So it was really interesting to hear so much about the development of the Korean market, the Chinese market, Asian market in general. It was so interesting to see that there are a lot of similarities to what is happening globally in the US, in Europe, but also like there are remarkable differences. Also that we can so much learn from each other. And of course, like that ESG is still something evolving, still so many new approaches, instruments, metrics, frameworks, new kinds of investor demands, and of course, all these sustainable challenges are out there, so we don't really have much time. So still a lot to do for all of us, but I do hope that our panel today also a little bit contributed to the further evolving of the ESG markets in Asia Pacific. So thank you very much for all of our panelists, and maybe let us give them an applause.